What is up, everyone? You know what time it is. We're about to get through this real quick. We got a bunch of questions, by the way. Like a lot of questions that people sent in. NFL, football. What else we talk about? Desperado. Cool. We should be good now. Sports podcast. Come on, man. Yo, man. Me and never hitting the shift bar to capitalize something. Name of our iconic duo. So 168. Clip Gang or Don't Bang. Oh, this week's episode is called Clip Gang or Don't Bang because that's literally a hoodie that the Clippers have been wearing around. So I thought it was kind of funny. Oh, man. More than welcome. Let's see. Let me refresh and see if I come up to the top of my feed because I'm subscribed to myself. Or not. No. Not even on the front page. It's wild. I don't know how to fix that. Or am I not live? No, I am live right now. Oh, man. Wow, man. And you guys are hearing that again. Anyway. Got that. Shout out to everybody who showed up early to the show. Let me hop on Twitch real quick. If you wrote something on Twitch, I couldn't see it. I'm sorry. I don't have that setting on OBS. So, but I will be watching myself. Stream manager. Page. Go to my fucking. There we go. My stream. Chanel, as she likes to be called. Desperado. God damn it. Notes app. Yeah, guys, you know what we're doing. We're doing the social media stuff right now, so stick around for all the sportsy action afterwards. As usual, if you want to drop a topic or something like that, put it in the comments, and your boy will respond. Listen and watch live. God damn it. Here we go. Tune in below. We got a lot of. I think we got some good topics today. I will say I'm disappointed that we're not really going to talk about a bunch of NBA stuff, even though we are. Like, people wrote in questions like specifically for the NBA, but we're not going to like really dive into NBA shit today, which is the weird thing. Twitch. Oh, didn't learn how to spell, Ashton. Oh wow, just had that moment where I realized I haven't eaten a full meal today. Ate a meal replacement bar, drank some coffee, drank some electrolyte, and then made the dumbest mistake possible of not eating proper sustenance. Good job, Ashton. Good job hating yourself somehow. I don't even think it's like a hating myself thing. I legitimately forget sometimes. Also, got my lunch lady arms out today, guys. What else do we talk about on this show? Disney Plus Day. Let's see. YouTuber. I guess I'm a YouTuber now. Yeah. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. Did I put hashtag Twitch? I did. What else we doing? NFL, NBA. Are we talking about anything else? We're doing picks for the NFL this week. So if you got picks or hot takes or whatever, drop them in the comments. We're almost done here. Don't worry, guys. We're almost done. Almost being the keyword. Select all, copy. All right, you tweet that. Tweet that. I'll tweet this. And post that on Facebook. Hopefully some of these people that ask these questions will hop in as well. That's so weird because like you can definitely tell that there's people who ask questions and then listen back retroactively. Anyway, now I got to do the next step that got me like 2 followers the first time that I did it, and I didn't do it last episode, which was schedule tweets while we're doing this show, like 15 minutes into it or whatever, to get people to pay attention. Anyway, god damn it. It was right there on the top of my feed. There it is. Here. Control. Alright, copy, paste here. It is not 35 characters over. That's literally it. Okay, because, right, you don't copy emojis. I forgot. Never mind. Don't forget, guys. Can't copy and paste emojis on the desktop version of Twitter. It literally just types out what the emoji is, because that's what the coding is in the system. I find that funny. It is kind of funny because it literally was just like red police lights. I was like, okay, thanks, dude. Thanks for the update, I guess. November 12th. November 12th, 7. Very important just happened. 40. Confirm. I drank coffee before I started doing this too, so this should be interesting. Don't feel any different right now. Let's go 8 o'clock on the 12th. Yo, people who work on Twitter scheduling, whoever designed that aspect of Twitter, can you stop making the default date 5 days later instead of what it should be, which is like the current time and date, and then make somebody modify it from that point out? Anyway, whatever. 8:15. I ain't gonna get in so much trouble. No, I won't. Confirm. Alright, so that's assuming that we're gonna have like a 45-minute show, which we more than likely will have longer than that, but I feel like I've been doing a really good job of truncating the show, guys. People complained about that, and I responded accordingly and cut down the time that the show spends talking. Well, I spend talking. You guys know. 8:30. Send that. Schedule that one. Schedule me another one of them there tweets. Oh man, I gotta figure out. I should probably do this before I get on. So at 7:45, you're gonna tweet that on the 12th. Confirm. Schedule. Everybody losing their shit over Taylor Swift. I honestly just don't get it, man. I really don't. Seems like I understand she's a very talented musician, but what am I gonna do? she's not for me, right? She doesn't make music for me. I guess she makes music for anybody who enjoys her music, but I'm not one of those people. I think she's very good. I've listened to her stuff. I just don't care as much as everybody else does, but that's why, Fanatics, fan is short for fanatic. You guys know the drill. Yeah, I hit you with that one. I hit you with the classics, baby. Fan is short for fanatic. Classic sports one. 8:40. Confirm. I just realized 8:40 would mean that we had a show that was an hour long, which we are 100% going to have. Anyway, in theory, that's what's going to happen. Broke Boy Sports. Copy and paste this. Sorry, dude. Trying to schedule stuff. 12th. Put it at 7:40. Paste that one at 7:40. Actually, 7:42. 7:43. Schedule that one. Schedule one for 8 o'clock. Yeah, you're seeing the golden time right now. This is elite level stuff, guys, that you're witnessing. Shout out to whoever liked the stream. We're about to get started here in a couple minutes. Legitimately, I mean a couple minutes. Anyway, let's move on. You guys like my new mesh jersey? My Greek freak mesh jersey? Honestly, like, whoever pitched that idea to Giannis and he said yes to it, to be like, I want to take the word freak and turn it into my brand. It's just like, clutch, bro. He's like, we can totally make that happen. I find it very funny. Also very clever because of, like, the duality of that. Especially since that one video of him on Instagram with the blowjob bell. You guys ever saw that one? If you haven't seen that, you need to go check it out. It's pretty funny. Yeah, his wife now. Well, I don't know if they're married. I do know they have a child together. Anyway, I think that's enough for today. Let's do it. That's enough scheduled tweets. Hopefully that'll get some people popping. I will also try and avoid showing you guys all of my disgusting fat rolls on here. AKA, let's get it popping real quick. Wow, we skipped 6 frames already. What the hell's going on? We already had this discussion about how we have a frame peak so we don't skip frames. Buddy. What the hell? Minor issues for you, but I'm used to not skipping frames. Good thing it's in like this part. Did another one just drop? Bitch, we about to have a problem. Hey, douchebag, you're supposed to be... Hey, doofus, yeah. What's going on? What are you doing here? Why are we regressing back to dropping frames? It's unnecessary. Whatever, man. We're gonna get through it. If we drop frames, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out, guys. If we're dropping frames, let me know. Please. I'm sure you will let me know. Anyway, let's get it popping. Going live in 3. Ladies and gentlemen, Boys and girls and everybody else in between, I'm Ashton Gene Lewis. This is the Broke Boys Sports Podcast, episode 168, Clip Bang or Don't Bang. Clip Gang or Don't Bang, in honor of the absolutely absurd hoodies that Kawhi Leonard and Reggie Jackson have been wearing in their press conferences this season. By the way, kind of surprised that Kawhi Leonard's even showing up to the facility. I'm kidding. I'm really not. But nonetheless, we are here for yet another killer episode of the Broke Boys Sports Podcast. I am the Broke Boy extraordinaire, Ashton Gene Lewis. You can find me on Twitter, FB_playbook. You can find my personal Twitter account. And I say personal because it's like I talk about sports, but like in a different way on there. But I also talk about my life at The Ashton J. Follow me on Instagram at The Ashton Forever. Also, if you want to follow my random burner account that I use for the NFL Images of the Week, if you're one of those weird people, there's like literally over 100 people that follow an account that does not post, called the Mood of Sports, ladies and gents. So shout out to everybody who's out there following for literally no reason, because it does not benefit your life in any way, shape, or form to follow the Mood of Sports. But if you're one of those people who wants to do it, go right ahead. We are dropping frames according to what I am seeing right now. It's actually very frustrating, and I apologize about that in advance. We're going to have a conversation with OBS after this, aka I'm going to make it physically manifest itself into a person, and I will beat its ass just for you. Anyway, we got a lot of stuff to get to. We got a lot of sports to talk about. We actually have a shit ton of questions that people wrote into the show. So shout out to everybody who's either been paying attention on some form of my social media that has sent me a question to answer on this here program. We'll give you a shout out like we do every single week. If you want to send in a question, you don't even have to follow my social media accounts. I literally just want to have some kind of engagement in general. So if you do send in a question, make sure you do listen to the show afterwards. All that good jazz like that. But before we get to all the questions that are coming up later on, we are doing hydration breaks today. So if you have whatever you need to hydrate on a Friday, I'm not here to ask questions. The only question I want to know is like, what's in your cup? I'm not here to judge you or anything like that. As a matter of fact, I support the liquid relaxer if you're out there chilling out, checking that out. But we got another thing coming up here. We got to talk about Nerd News, the first part of the show every single week. Don't forget, you can check out the podcast on Spotify, YouTube, Twitch, Deezer, Podchaser, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, all that good jazz like that. And I did say the word YouTube, which means I have to do one thing. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and make sure you smash that notification bell to know every time that we go live. Hey, I actually did pretty good that time. I feel pretty good about it. Also, shout out to people who are going to watch the Week 9 recap of Week 9 recap of the NFL that I dropped after Week 10 started because YouTube is stupid. I set the wrong date for something to premiere, and that is 100% on me. Anyway, appreciate everybody who goes back and watches that. I just recapped everything that happened in Week 9, and I actually spent a ton of time researching, and I rewatched every single game for the third week in a row. Rewatched every game in the NFL season, so that was fun. Rewatched every game this week in the NFL. Other stuff coming on. Like I said before, we get the show started here, ladies and gents, quite simply with Nerd News. It's where I talk about nerd stuff. If you don't know, I'm a big, I wouldn't say big. I'm a comic book fan. As you can see behind me, I have pops for two of the greatest heroes known to the comic cinematic universe. Well, not even cinematic, but soon-to-be cinematic universe, comic universe in general. It is one John Stewart, a.k.a. one of many Green Lanterns that preside over the the District of Earth, right? And then on top of him is Static Shock, who I grew up watching as a kid. So very important. I wish I could get like a Spike from the old Marvel comics. I mean, not old, the old X-Men TV show. I wish I could get one of those Funko Pops. So if you know where I can find one of those, please let me know. I will point out, they are supposedly bringing back, they're doing X-Men 97, which, by the way, is the point of Nerd News this week. It was Disney Plus Day today, so they announced a shit ton of shows that are coming up pretty soon, and then some shows that are premiering next week, or not next week, but premiering next year and the year after that. So, it's going to be pretty legit to sit back. Like, I saw a bunch of them. There is Loki's getting another season. They're going to give Agatha Hargrave a spinoff show of her own as well. There's going to be a Miss Marvel show like we all heard about earlier on. And for the Star Wars fans, there was a photo of concept art released for Kenobi. I'm sure they enjoyed that a ton. But like I said, there's a bunch of TV series. There's a Marvel Zombies TV series that's coming out. She-Hulk took a lot of attention for a lot of people coming up here pretty soon. And then what else? Who else? The Marvel Zombie TV show I'm very interested in, because Marvel Zombies, if you don't know, is not like just a what if story. Oh, there it is right there. What If is getting a second season, which is not a surprise whatsoever. There's actually an episode missing from season 1 that's supposed to be involved in season 2. So I wonder how that's all going to tie together. If you don't know, the What If series is something that came out very recently, and it's something from the comics they just turned into a TV series, right, for Disney Plus, animated TV series. You should definitely check it out. It helps you grasp the idea of what a multiverse is if you're not familiar with it, because it is something that is like paramount to the very existence of comic books as we know, because they manipulate the shit out of what the multiverse means at any given time. It's one of the biggest and best tools that the creators for Marvel stuff and DC stuff as well, anything comic book related, have at their disposal. But yeah, I wanted to point that out. Check out. By the way, I wanted to point out a little shows to make a big stink about one of out of the list of them. I'm most excited for Secret Invasions. If you don't know what that is, it is a story. Oh, by the way, there's a Moon Knight trailer that came out, but the biggest announcement for me personally was the Secret Invasion TV series. It's a major story arc in the Marvel comic books. Nick Fury is back. Yes, Samuel L. Jackson is back in some way, shape, or form in this show. Don't know if he's going to be in consistently, although we do know that these Disney Plus shows tend to be like 8 to 10 episodes long. It's not like a full season worth of stuff, and especially considering how many shows they were bringing up, you can tell that they're trying to go for a cycle that is literally year-round for these quote-unquote minor heroes that are involved with Disney Plus, but it's definitely drawing people into purchasing Disney Plus subscriptions, which, by the way, $199 apparently today. So check that out if you can. Get the hookup, get the hustle going. But the biggest announcement is Secret Invasion, because it leads into a bunch of different aspects of the Marvel Universe, in particular the new Avengers, which is the next team of Avengers that's coming up, which of course has been the big question mark about who's going to be in the Avengers now with Tony Stark. If you don't know, Tony Stark's dead in the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now, and then on top of that, like everything else, where like all the heroes, like Captain America's chosen to grow old, not confirmed if he's dead or not yet. He could be somewhere else or whatever. He does have the super soldier serum still flowing through his veins, all that kind of jazz like that. There is an alternate universe where the serum kind of wears off and Captain Rodgers dies, but other stuff. This whole storyline is centered around the Skrulls. If you've watched the Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel movie, I say Miss Marvel because they're doing a TV series, Miss Marvel, but if you watch the Captain Marvel movie, you know who the Skrulls are. They are the shapeshifters that S.H.I.E.L.D. found and kind of befriended. They've had their story change slightly for the Marvel Cinematic Universe, but Secret Invasion is about the arrival of the Skrulls on the planet, kind of a Marvel's take on the lizard people conspiracy theory, where like every major person in the world is a lizard person in a skin suit kind of deal, but the Skrulls are trying to infiltrate Earth to prevent the fulfillment of a prophecy where their home world gets destroyed kind of deal. I don't know how much the Kree are going to be involved with it or anything like that. The Kree are another race of beings that have been at war with the Skrulls for a long time. The Skrulls are typically in the comic books like inherently bad in some way, shape, or form. Like I said before, they try and impersonate heroes when they come to Earth and replace them, like Stepford Wives type stuff. Like they take them, and then they replace them or kind of stuff. What whole classic horror movie is that? Anyway, it's basically like you steal a person, you replace them with a robot. Like whatever that movie, that concept originated from film-wise is what Secret Invasion is, except it is the Skrulls. Some people can notice the difference, and it actually leads into, like I said, the new Avengers. It also leads into a storyline that overlaps with the Raft situation. If you remember, Baron Zemo gets taken to this place called the Raft after the Captain America Winter Soldier show, and he gets put inside this like water-floating prison that has a bunch of supervillains in it, including Abomination. That is going to lead into the Thunderbolts, which is basically the U.S. government-sanctioned version of the Avengers. That is also Secret Invasion also leads into the development and creation of the Illuminati, which in the Marvel Universe is the collection of the smartest Marvel cinematic heroes that care about the protection of Earth. So it has T'Challa in it, has Reed Richards from Fantastic Four, which is an important part because trying to figure out how to actually get the Fantastic Four in the Marvel Cinematic Universe and not making them corny as shit has been the one thing that Marvel has really messed up, right? The one thing that they've just completely screwed up is that, like, the getting the Fantastic Four in the Marvel Cinematic Universe in a logical way that makes sense in some way, shape, or form. But yeah, other than that, it's probably Thor 2, The Dark World, and Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2 is really bad. Iron Man 2 is probably the worst Marvel Cinematic film. And that's saying a lot because Hulk, the original Hulk, was really bad. So, but yeah, check that out. That's gonna be dope. I'm super pumped for Secret Invasion for all those many reasons, and I think a lot of stuff that's in Secret Invasion is gonna spiral out into more TV shows, and then of course have like some kind of connection to what goes on in the big films, because it is going to be the first time you see Nick Fury in a while. He's been in credit scenes on the Sword space station. I'm sorry if I was a spoiler for some people, but yeah, you'll learn there's going to be a Sword and Shield kind of dynamic. Even though Shield is destroyed, Sword is the space branch of Shield essentially, and there's another character that is involved with Secret Invasion called Echo, who is a deaf Native American elite level bowman. She actually hangs out with Daredevil quite a bit within the comics, so that could be interesting because this could be a way for the Daredevil that we all saw on Netflix to kind of work his way into the main MCU. Don't know if they're going to try and work in like Luke Cage and Iron Fist. Apparently they're done with Iron Fist. Like, everybody's done with Iron Fist according to news, and who knows who actually has a say on whether Iron Fist is done in terms of his attempts to try to become a member of the Avengers in a viable sense. I guess you could say that like Iron Fist is probably like the second biggest mistake superhero wise that didn't just attach with people, right? Anyway, there's that going on. That is going to be a ton of fun for me personally as a big nerd. That's what I got for nerd news. The arrival of Secret Invasion, which is going to be I think it's going to be a huge jumping off point. That's not the biggest, probably the biggest jumping off point. That's not a actual cinematic film within the Marvel Universe. So I can't wait to see what they're able to piece together with that. But moving on, we actually talk about some sports, and as a matter of fact, we talk about what this show is built upon. This show builds itself as the best and the worst that sports has to offer every single week, and right now we got the best of the best. We got, this was actually really fun. Hail to the King. If you've noticed the last 3 weeks, I think I did Petty Queens, which is for the Chicago Sky when they won the WNBA championship. They brought the door that Diana Taurasi kicked in after she lost the championship to with the Phoenix Mercury to the Chicago Sky. They brought it as the special guest to the championship parade. Petty King was about Mark Davis, who pays $200 for that haircut. Don't let people. I just don't want people to forget about that. Mark Davis, who demanded that the emails that John Gruden, by the way, is now suing the NFL over for the reason that he was forced out of his job in his position. He thinks that he was fired like wrongful termination suit type stuff or whatever. Even though your public image is an important part of what you do as a representative of the company that you work for, and it is grounds for firing in the NFL. Whether that's going to be confirmed in a legal sense, I guess we'll find out at some point here pretty soon. Also, I would like to point out that lawsuit is probably going to, unless the NFL settles, which has to be the first thing on the table, the NFL settles, that lawsuit is probably going to be the first thing, the emails that everybody wants to see is probably going to be the first thing that John Gruden and his legal representation forced to be released in terms of like discovery or in some other way, shape, or form, and then they might be open to a open records request by media people, and they might be able to gain access to all of those emails, in which case will probably. The reason that John Gruden probably wants those emails to come out is because other people were saying far worse shit than he was, or just as bad shit as he was, and they still have a job in the NFL. I have a strange feeling that's exactly why we're having that conversation. But we move on. Best of the best here. Effective July 1st of 2021, all 14 athletic programs in the Marching 100 of Florida A&M University, a historically black college and university, and historically black college and university, HBCU, will be outfitted in LeBron James's signature uniforms and apparel through a Nike partnership. He is going to be just like the man himself, the myth, the legend, Michael Jordan. He's going to have his own branding. The jump. Well, if you know LeBron James's logo, it's a crown, right? which, by the way, very subtle. Because I honestly, when I see, I think the crown that LeBron James has as his logo is so powerful because it's in the sense of like there's so many other companies that have a crown that represents what they are as like a business or whatever. But like LeBron James, like you see that like kind of box cutout crown or like a box letter E turned sideways kind of deal, and you know that it is LeBron James. So, and it's also pretty subtle too. I like that to go along with it. But yeah, for sure, this is huge in general. After the big after the Space Jam stuff where they got a ton of merch out there and they sold the shit out of Space Jam 2 on a level that Michael Jordan probably could never imagine doing with Space Jam, right, originally. But LeBron James to be able to take this giant leap, really business-wise, into major apparel deals, major uniform outfitting deals, and for the first one to be an HBCU is massive, especially considering we saw recently the push from Deion Sanders in terms of his desire for the SWAC at HBCUs just in general to put the names on the back of the uniforms of the players that are out there representing the school to give them some kind of connection and some kind of pride to go out there and fight with, to make it seem like it's personalized and not like they're literally just a number on a uniform, and kind of, give them a little bit of an extra boost in terms of like, this means something because we're invested in you, you're invested in us, and that's why both of our names are on the jersey. Same thing with this one here. I'm assuming that people are going to have their names on the back of the jerseys at FAMU, but yeah, this is huge just in general, especially if there's going to be a big initiative to try and get this deal spread across all the HBCUs or a lot of other smaller universities and colleges, because there's a lot to be gained in terms of the alumni base that is out there, and then on top of that, a lot to be gained in terms of establishing long-lasting connections that help these HBCUs get the funding that they need. We're seeing the stuff going on at Howard right now where the students are basically protesting the fact that their school has horrible living conditions for one of the premier universities amongst black people and just in general in the country, right? But Howard is considered to be the top of the top amongst the HBCUs, and they have freshmen and juniors and seniors and stuff like that talking about like their facilities with mold all over the place, and that's just a no-go, and it just comes down to money. And of course there's always somebody who's trying to get some kind of money for themselves, but the fact of the matter is these partnership deals, by the way, the only reason FAMU was able to even get this deal is because they left the MEAC and joined the SWAC. And if you're a person who's not like really deep in the sport, not really deep in the college sports or university sports or whatever, the MEAC to the SWAC is like a massive jump. The SWAC has a guaranteed spot, and then sometimes gets at-large bids for the NCAA tournament. So that's actually, especially when it's competitive enough, that's where SFA and, SFA is in the SWAC. Houston Baptist University is in the SWAC as well. And there's a lot of other smaller schools that make big noise on a larger scale that are within the SWAC in general. Texas Southern is in the SWAC. They've... the Southland Conference is where SFA is. Texas Southern is in the SWAC. So FAMU is joining that along with Southern University. Don't get them confused. Really don't get them confused. It's a big deal. But yeah, we move on. That's best of the best, ladies and gents. A big company like Nike signing a deal specifically with FAMU. It's not like they went up and they're like, hey, here's a generic contract for you guys to get gear from Nike. This is a full-on investment in the school and in the university that is apparently being spearheaded by LeBron James himself, or being a big point of emphasis for LeBron James himself, a guy who did not go to college but understands the importance and value of that education to other people. So shout out to LeBron and shout out to FAMU for getting this big deal, because hopefully that money helps the athletes out in the long run and helps them go on to longer careers in whatever field they choose to be in, whether it be sports or not. We move, ladies and gentlemen, to our first hydration break of the show. If you're not familiar, if you're new here at the show, we take breaks throughout the course. We take 2 breaks throughout the course of the show. One is after best of the best, because when we come back, worst of the worst is the thing that is on here, and it's the worst thing that I saw this week in sports, right? So we take a little time to either, get yourself a little loose and get ready for worst of the worst, or, you get ready, saddle in with some water. I got to drink some water because I have to play games tomorrow. I've actually I have some scrimmages and Quidditch for tomorrow, so I need to not be in any way, shape, or form buzzed tonight. After the game, though, my knee is actually super sore. Don't tell anybody, guys. But afterwards, I will be afterwards I'm going to be drinking probably quite a bit. And then Saturday, turns out all my friends are either in Nashville or somewhere else, so I'll have to find people to watch football with. If you're one of those people in Houston, hit me up. Hit me up on Twitter at FB_Playbook. We'll be right back. We're playing New Beginnings by Christina Gucas. Make sure your last name Guckes. Go follow her on SoundCloud. And we're back here live on the Broke Boys Sports Podcast. I'm Ashton Gene Lewis. You are listening to episode 168, or you're watching episode 168. We simulcast on Twitch and on YouTube every single week. I do try and get the podcast up in a reasonable amount of time within the same week, but sometimes, that doesn't happen. Like yesterday. Yesterday was rough, man. I thought it was already up. I thought the NFL preview was already up, and it just was not. It just wasn't, ladies and gents. Anyway, we move on. Something far worse, far more heinous. I'm kidding. It is pretty stupid, though. Worst of the worst, ladies and gents. The worst thing that I saw in sports this week. Aaron Rodgers apologizing. I think. Anyway, here's a couple of things from Aaron Rodgers' second weekly appearance on the Pat McAfee show that involved his opinions on the current COVID-19 pandemic. So there's two here, and I got a longer one that I'm going to read off my doc, and you tell me what you think afterwards. Aaron Rodgers, apparently, he wants you to believe, by the way, Aaron Rodgers revealed that he, like we all suspected, like, literally be out here listening to Joe Rogan for medical advice and shit like that. Other stuff, he talks about that. He talks about that. He talks about how he doesn't think that the COVID-19 pandemic is on the up and up in terms of like people gaining money, intentionally trying to blow it out of proportion and out of control. And I have consistently maintained on this show the concept that humanity is dumb enough to believe that nature is being dramatic is fucking hilarious to me. Nature is vicious at all times. We live in a world where parents eat their children consistently in certain groups of animals. Not saying it's humans, but I'm sure it's happened before in humanity. But yeah, man, like some of you guys are ridiculous in terms of like you have to quantify every horrible things that it has to be blamed on somebody. It has to go to be connected to something in a deeper pattern as opposed to sometimes like horrible. As a matter of fact, a lot more often than you think, horrible shit happens, right? Stuff to read from the second appearance. By the way, he appears on the Pat McAfee show every single week. In case you ever like wanted to hear Aaron Rodgers' opinions in general, he actually seems like a reasonable human being up until he starts talking about his medical opinions, right? I made some comments that people might have felt were misleading. There were multiple times that Aaron Rodgers basically went out there and recited all of the whack shit that a certain group of people, a lot of conservatives on the internet, a lot of people who honestly like love to feed into conspiracy theories in general, went out there and kind of been preaching out there for about a year. And it's always funny because every time there's like a scientific counter to their original mindset or their original thought, there just so happens to be something that they knew was going to happen that you didn't, and you're stupid for not believing it, right? He said the keyword free thinker, which has become basically is a giant insult, right? Like he's basically like, you're dumb enough to believe what they're telling you, as opposed to by the way, like one of the biggest ways to identify if you're in on a con is to believe that you somehow know more than others, and it is because of an aspect that you believe in that other people do not, despite there being no evidence for your side, like your side to actually make sense belief wise. So there's that. He also says, I'm an athlete, I'm not an activist. He said, I will shut up and dribble, because he actually had a whole conversation about later on during the podcast about how he is just going to, he's excited to get back to playing football. And I'm sure he is, because he'll be in an environment where people are totally cool with his pushing of misinformation about a global pandemic that, once again, nobody's like super qualified to talk about, but I would imagine it's the guy who doesn't really believe that it exists would talk about. And there's one more quote that I wanted to read out here that is so outlandish I have to like read it verbatim so nobody can say that I took it out of context, which is of course like a go-to phrase for a lot of people, right? I have a ton of empathy for people who have been going through the worst part of this pandemic. Does he? Which has affected all of us in different ways. But so many people with, like I said, lives that were lost, lives that were forever changed, and I have a ton of compassion and empathy for those people. I've tried to help out as much as I can. The other stuff is out of my control, and there's going to be people that don't like you or hate you for things you said, or might not understand what you said. Might not understand, right? I think we all really understood what you said last week, Aaron. What you said or no, what you said might have just, pissed somebody off. Seen a headline, and that's fine. I believe that people are entitled to their opinion, even if it's not an opinion even if it's an opinion that's unfavorable to me. It's interesting. Nobody ever talks about the validity of people's opinions, right? Like I was always told that like facts are facts and opinions are opinions, right? And I was also taught this like really easy, basic concept that a fact cannot be an opinion and an opinion cannot be a fact. But opinions are formed based off of facts. Like good opinions are formed based off of facts. And as far as the world is concerned, Aaron Rodgers he believes that he's making his opinion based off of facts. Despite the fact that the facts that he's using have been disproven or have no evidence to support them, right? Like he talks about how like natural immunity. Don't have a really good concept in terms of like how that's going to work for you in the long run. That kind of stuff like that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Aaron Rodgers like fake apologized. He basically was just like, I am sorry that you don't understand me. I am sorry if you got upset at what I said. I am not sorry for what I said. He even multiple times throughout the interview said that he was sorry for what he said, but he still stands by what he believes. So he's actually not sorry for what he said. There's like I said before, he says he's doing everything in his power to help with the pandemic. We know that's not the case. I will say, don't forget, Aaron Rodgers said he is allergic to one of the ingredients in the mRNA vaccine, and still has not given a reason why he hasn't taken the Johnson & Johnson vaccine, which is not mRNA. Anyway, that is what I got for worst of the worst. I'm not going to harp on it too much because I just want to keep people abreast of like legit dude that has the ability to inspire other people to make the right decision in terms of like trying to do their part and help out other people who can't be vaccinated. Chose to go out and double down on the information that he's out there putting and spreading and stuff like that for the sake of what he believes to be the truth. So there's that. Despite the fact that he's basically weighing his opinion against like actual doctors and scientists and stuff like that. So that's fun. Moving on. We got about a week ago. This is actually really funny because we don't have about a week ago because we're taking that segment out to focus on the questions. We got literally like double-digit questions we need to get through. Yeah, we'll work on it. About a week ago, we're not doing that this week. We are doing We Talking Money or We Talking Money, where we talk about, you guessed it, money. The era of fuck them picks continues for the LA Rams as they get Odell Beckham Jr. off waivers after he asked and requested his release from the Cleveland Browns. They obliged to him. He cleared waivers. He was picked up by the Rams, signed a free agent deal with the Rams. And there is already rumors swirling around that they're trying to work on something that is going to end up being like a long-term extension for him and all that kind of jazz like that. But yeah, the era of fuck them picks continues. Even though Odell Beckham Jr. did not cost them draft picks, it is still a motion within the future will never get here type of situation, the all-in situation that the Rams have been a part of. And like I said, we talking money or we talking money, the Rams are trying to get to that Super Bowl in LA this year. So that's going to be a sight to behold when it's all said and done, especially if they're able to pull it off and win the Super Bowl. They will be the first host team to ever win the Super Bowl in their home stadium. And that actually, like, there's so much money to be gained from the Rams getting to the Super Bowl and winning it. Not even just for the Matthew Stafford storyline, but Sean McVay getting another shot at it. And then on top of that, LA getting a championship from a football team will basically solidify their fan base and help them draw in fans. Because right now, I will point out, when the Titans and the Rams played each other, there were actually Rams fans in the building, and you couldn't tell that the building had been taken over by the opposing team's fans. But we'll see how that all shakes out when it's all said and done. But yeah, the era of fuck them picks continues for the Rams as they continue to go all in, and I can't do anything to sit back and respect it. They got Von Miller last week. They got Odell Beckham Jr. this week. You better watch out. They might find a way to get Tom Brady next week. You never know. I'm kidding. But nonetheless, this should be interesting. There's a big aspect that's coming, and a lot of people, I don't know who these people are. There are people who are, and maybe it's just in my Twitter feed, there are people who are convinced that Van Jefferson is going to prevent Odell Beckham Jr. from getting on the field. And I'm like, boy, if you don't shut the hell up, Van Jefferson will be missing snaps. He will not be taking snaps. That's just how he will be missing snaps for Odell Beckham Jr. to get on the field. I know that there are people out there who legitimately believe that Odell Beckham Jr. is not as good as wide receiver as he actually is. I'm sorry to break it to you. He is one of the best in the game. That's just facts. And now with and somebody actually made another really good point, and it's actually something that I thought about in comparison to other wide receivers that the Rams have had this season. As we all know, they have like Josh Reynolds. As we all know, they have Josh Reynolds, Cooper Kupp, who's on like a historic pace after, well, it kind of slowed down a little bit, but nonetheless, still on a historic pace and a career-setting pace for him. But Odell Beckham Jr. also coming in last week after Deshaun Jackson requested his release from the Rams so that he can find a place that is going to give him more snaps. And I think a lot of that has to do with maybe trying to find guys that are willing to try and find their way to fit into the system. And we'll see if Odell Beckham Jr. is going to be one of those guys here pretty soon. We'll find out, I guess. In the meantime, Odell Beckham Jr. is joining Van Jefferson, Josh Reynolds, and Cooper Kupp to be a part of the wide receiver corps for the LA Rams. I think you call that a win like 99% of the time. So we'll find out when it's all said and done. Like grand scheme, big scheme things, we'll find out. But yeah, that is what we got for We Talking Money or We Talking Money. We move on to the next segment of the show. Media suggestions. I got one for you. There's not a video. It's actually a really, and sad to say it's on the New York Post, but it is an article about Fredolyn Bangwa. You can, her name is Fred. First name is Fred Ilyn, Fredolyn, that's her first name, and then Bangwa. That's her last name. She is a 6-time New York City Marathon finisher. She actually finished her 50th marathon overall at the last New York Marathon that she was able to complete. She is the person who came in dead last at the New York Marathon most recently, as a matter of fact. I read this article because, one, like I've mentioned before on this show, and I think I talk about it in real life enough, every sport I've ever played, I've always sucked. Like, I've never been on, like, a winning team in any point in my sports history. Not like a prolonged winning team that I was a part of or anything like that. I've always been a guy who tries hard, and I call myself a try-hard because I try hard even when, I'm out-talented by a lot of people, which happens a lot. I win pick-up basketball games. I win, pick up kickball and all that kind of stuff like that, but being on a running team, even my Quidditch team that I'm currently on right now, have been on, not great in terms of win-losses category overall. Do I have a ton of fun playing Quidditch? Yes. Do I like my teammates a lot? Yes. But the fact of the matter is my team just doesn't win enough to be considered a threat for the national championship, and I'm trying to change that by however means that is going to happen. But this is a great story about there's so many people who they wake up every day and they talk about rising and grinding and doing all this kind of stuff like that. It actually gets super old as a guy who works out pretty consistently and eats decently for the most part and doesn't really see a ton of gains in terms of physical appearance, but does see gains in terms of ability to do things on the field or ability to do things in terms of speed and agility and all that kind of stuff like that. The rise and grind mentality is super annoying to me. I also like to sleep in, so that's a big part of it. But Fredolyn Bangwa is a woman who has rheumatoid arthritis and was able to complete the New York City Marathon. And so many coaches across the world and across the country, so many athletes talk about the importance of finishing, right? Fredolyn's not going to come in the top 10 in the New York City Marathon. She finished this marathon, I think it was in 12 hours or 10 hours or something like that. She finished this marathon in 10 hours. The winner of this thing finished in 2, right? Or just over 2 hours. And of course, it was a professional runner who won $100,000 when they crossed the finish line first, all that kind of stuff like that. But yeah, there's something to be said about a person who knows that they're not going to win, but continues to go out there and try. And not even just try, knows they're going to finish because they have that kind of belief in themselves and is determined to finish it. The story is well written, and I enjoyed it quite a bit. I actually teared up a little bit because sometimes people get so caught up in winning, they forget that it's about having fun. It's about pushing yourself against yourself every single day. And if there's anything that running is, and from what I've been told, especially about long distance running, I wouldn't say that I've done long distance running very long, as you can tell physically. But long distance running, it's all about how much pain you are willing to take and how much pain you're willing to take to achieve your goal. And Fredolyn, by day, is an engineer, and she chooses to grind it out with more hustle and more heart than most of these dudes who are on Instagram telling you that they got all the hustle and heart in the world, right? And she shows it. She, through immense pain, finished a marathon. I can't finish a marathon through the little pain that I go through on a regular basis. She's next level. And sometimes you forget that it's not about the athlete that jumps the highest or runs the fastest or can get from point A to point B the quickest or the one that can bench press the most weight. It's about the athlete that has the muscle you can't work out, the grit that you can't work out, the hustle that you cannot go into a gym and lift weights with, right? It's about the athlete that will finish by any means necessary, by however long it takes. She has a part in this article where she talks about the sweeper truck coming by, and it's where they pick up people who are along the path that know that they're not going to finish and want to hop in the truck and all that kind of stuff like that and ride to the finish line. And she says she thought about it for half a second, and I appreciate her honesty instead of coming up with the BS of oh no, it never even crossed my mind. She thought about it for a second, and she was like, nah, I think I got this one. Different breed, right? People talk about being built different and then they flex their muscles, right? Fredolyn's built different, and you would see her walking down the street, you wouldn't think much of her in terms of physical appearance and athleticism, but she's may not be the fastest, but she's relentless, and sometimes being relentless goes so far. That's all I had for media suggestion. You should definitely check it out. Moving on, we got questions here. Some of them are obviously meant to hurt me as a person And I appreciate that. Anyway, if you want to send in a question to the show, hit me up on Twitter at FB_playbook. Hit me up on Twitter at the Ashton J. You can write questions there. On Instagram at the Ashton Forever. You can also hit me up on Twitter at you can drop questions in the YouTube and the Twitch chat, and I'll answer them on the show at any point in any given time. Other than that, send smoke signals. I got a guy that I pay every week to look for smoke signals coming towards Houston, Texas, to that have sports questions built into them. The other smoke signals he just ignores. So like, sorry to that group of people who were probably lost in Huntsville State Park. My guy didn't tell me about, your smoke signals. Sorry to hopefully, you know what? If you were sending up smoke signals asking for help, and it's been a week since like last Thursday or whatever, my guy saw it, didn't tell me about it, hopefully whatever was going to happen nature-wise has already happened, because suffering is not fun. Anyway, questions with this one, questions, comments, or hot takes. We got Martin, former co-host of this here podcast on the Broke Boys Sports Podcast. You can follow him at @MartinPape_ on Twitter. It's MARTYN PAPE_ on Twitter. Follow him there. He asked the question, if the golden era of the Astros is over, when is the next time the major sports franchise in Houston will be above 500 combined together? So let me read that question again. It was poorly written. Wow, Martin, gosh. If the golden era of the Astros is over, when will be the next time the major sports franchises in Houston, American football, basketball, baseball, soccer? He's smart to mention all the sports, because he knows that I would have said I would have probably put in the Houston Dash and stuff like that, and reminded people the Houston Dash ball the fuck out of control all the time. Combined to be above 500. So, we look at like the Houston Texans, right? Like poorly run organization for the most part in terms of like who has the power to give the thumbs up and the thumbs down. It looks like Nick Caserio may know what he's doing. Who knows what the head coaching situation is going to be in literally 3 years, because obviously Dave Culley has signed up for a job that could easily set him up to crash and burn, and it absolutely not be his fault, right? Other than that, it's going to be tough to see the Texans within like the next 5 years really turning it around, unless they, and this is another thing too, like the next 2 years draft-wise for Nick Caserio are going to make a huge difference, because if they can maintain the kind of defensive presence that we're seeing this season and actually find like a competent form of offense that includes an offensive line that can give a quarterback, and not even talking about like a quarterback, just giving like a quarterback a chance to go out there and make something happen every single game or every single week or whatever, it can go a long way in terms of turning this team around pretty quickly, especially in the AFC South, which is pretty tough because there's a lot of high first-round draft picks that are playing on AFC South teams, plus some teams are in championship phase. A lot of the Colts have been kind of looking like they want to be in the championship phase of this whole build that they're working on right now with the high-quality draft picks. They drafted 2 all-pro players at their individual positions in Quentin Nelson and Darius Leonard. And now they gotta, you gotta strike while the iron's hot kind of deal. So yeah, football-wise, unless the draft just blows people away, which it could possibly do that. Like Nick Caserio really struggled with the draft with the Patriots because they had low picks all the time. They had like the bottom pick of like pretty much every single round, and they were still able to go out there and find some players who were like semblance of success over these past like really decade, basically. Same thing with like I said, same thing with the Houston Texans. Hopefully they can hold on to their draft picks. Like, they're not the Rams, but for some reason they have Ram level draft picks, and they've been getting some slowly back from other teams that have been in like seller or buyer mode. They think that they're going to really turn the corner. Like the Dolphins were a team that the Texans traded with multiple times in the offseason to go out there and get some draft picks, and they thought they were going to be in a real situation. Turns out defense completely collapsed. Offense is kind of there. Well, at least the quarterback position is kind of there. The offensive line, not there, right? One of the best tight ends in the league. 2 really good wide receivers. Devontae Parker hasn't been playing, obviously, but Jalen Waddle was pretty impressive. And, anyway, moving on. Other stuff-wise, he says, baseball, I don't think the Astros have really fallen off. I know Carlos Correa's not coming back. That's totally or most likely not going to come back. And some people are just like, well, why don't you just draft another good one? Like, my barber literally said that, and I was just kind of like, what are you talking about? Like, Carlos Correa is not just like some random dude that you pick. Like, you could have 300 picks in the upcoming next like 4 MLB drafts and still not find a Carlos Correa, right? That being said, I don't think that the Astros are completely cooked. The Rockets are obviously in a rebuild mode, and if you know anything about basketball, really all it takes, if you really want to change flip the script or anything like that, if you're trying to build a championship team, you're trying to get as many high-quality role players as you can possibly get, and then attract the free agents, right? Like that's what the Brooklyn Nets did in terms of like Kawhi Leonard. Sorry, not Kawhi Leonard, but what they did in terms of Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant. That's what the Clippers did in terms of getting Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, right? Like they had the best role players in the game. That does not seem to be the path that the Astros are currently, the Rockets are currently on. They seem to be invested in trying to get these high quality draft picks out here, and with the way the season is going, they're probably going to have another lottery pick this upcoming year, which can only be good things. More lottery tickets, more chances to find the next big superstar in the NBA. So if you told me in 3 years the Rockets had completely turned it around and they were back to being a perennial playoff contender with guys that they drafted, I would believe you. Soccer-wise, look, man, the Dynamo have been bad for like 4 years straight, basically. So I really can't help you with that. I saw that they re-signed their old general manager. Hopefully he can bring back the level of talent that the Dynamo used to have throughout the entire organization. Because at one point, for about 5 years there, people used to say the Dynamo had the best farm system in the MLS. But clearly those days are behind them. So that being said, we move on. Maybe 5 years. Maybe 6 years we see the combined record of all the teams, even though, the Astros have the biggest impact on whether or not all these teams are going to be over 500. Astros and Rockets, 162, 82 games, right? But yeah, no, right now it's pretty dark, guys. The golden era of Houston sports is over, and we got what? 2 World Series out of it. 1 World Series out of it. So not great. Hopefully the sun will shine again. This is Josh Mansfield, Jamsfield on Twitter. Follow him at JamSSField, right? Follow him there. He says, I think this is just a hot take, right? Saints have the best defense/special teams in the NFL, ignoring the first 5 weeks of kicker roulette, which is a good point to be made. They did not get their kicker off of IR until like 2 weeks ago. The Saints defense is definitely looking like a top 10 defense on an average day for them, and then at times they look like a top 5 defense. They have fooled a lot of people into believing that these quarterbacks that they have are the reason that they're going out there and winning games. Do not forget that the wide receiver core for the Saints has been looking rough since week 1, ladies and gents, and the Saints defense has gone out there and made it happen. And honestly, you think if they have like an average offense in the NFL, they're looking like a top 5 defense in the NFL when it's all said and done. So yeah, I gotta agree with you on that one. This is from Ryan. I actually don't know what Ryan sent this in. This is a Ryan. Who you got in a fight? The Morris twins plus Jimmy Butler or the Serbian Mafia, Jokic and his brothers. Explain your reasoning, please. So this is obviously in reference to the situation that has been quite the point of contest for a lot of people, and honestly it's the 2 biggest group of people that are involved in the NBA currently: Eastern European big men and black people. So this is Ryan, hold on, this is I forget what his Twitter handle is. I'm sorry, Ryan. You should have sent it to me on Twitter, so I copy and paste your Twitter handle into it. Who you got in a fight? He says the Morris twins. So if you didn't see it, the Denver Nuggets played the Miami Heat earlier this week, and at one point, in an attempt to intentionally foul Jokic, even though the game was out of hand, the Nuggets were up. Jokic was basically like tackled by Markieff Morris. It was Markieff Morris. Hit him in the ribs, and as he walked away, because he basically bounced off of Jokic, because the big dog got to eat, right? Big dog does big dog things. Jokic puts the ball down, runs over, and completely crushes Morris from behind. He ends up on the ground, and then the Heat get into a scrum. That photo came out where they opened the door to the locker room, and it had all of the Miami Heat players like standing in the hallway. Jimmy Butler has that video of him losing his mind after Jokic got ejected from the game. A lot of people are pointing out how like when the situation was happening on the court, it was very easy to get people away from each other. But all of a sudden, when Jokic isn't out there and when the game is over, all of a sudden people want to be in the hallway. All of a sudden people want to start yelling and screaming when the cameras are around and stuff like that. And, I'm not one to ever question the toughness of a man named Jimmy Butler, who basically was kicked out of his house by his mother as a youth and found his way to the NBA to become a millionaire. So many would say that, he might be onto something. Anyway, he's not the kind of guy to question his toughness of. But I would say, if there was one person that could possibly question Jimmy Butler and the Morris twins' toughness overall, it would be the Jokic brothers. So if you don't know the story, you should definitely go read the Players Tribune article written by Nikola Jokic after he won the MVP, talking about like how they grew up, and everybody talks about that one photo of him like in the horse carriage while he's trying to race him and stuff like that, because he grew up wanting to race horses and all that kind of jazz like that. But Jokic, obviously about that life. One of his brothers, came to find out, Muay Thai fighter at like 6'7" or 6'9" or something like that. Muay Thai fighter, which, range. The Morris twins, they got a lot of toughness. They got that one rumor about that one time they jumped that dude that was like dating their mom, allegedly. You should go look that story up. Allegedly. Jimmy Butler, obviously very tough guy. We just talked about his background, his upbringing, from the gutter to becoming a millionaire. Same thing for the Jokic brothers. I will say, if I'm picking anyone, I'm going with the Jokic brothers. The motherfuckers are huge. They are from I almost named this episode "The Block is Hot." And the block I was talking about is the Baltic block. Yeah. Like, that was literally that. I was going to name this episode the Baltic block, or the block is hot, or some variation of that terminology, and then be like, no, the block I'm talking about is like the Eastern block of countries. So, yeah, anyway. Yeah, I'll take the Jokic brothers. Yeah. Definitely 100% taking the Jokic brothers in this one. And maybe it's the super racist or prejudicial mystique of like, oh, they're from Serbia, you know what I mean? And the sting and the stigma that goes along with that, where it's like, these dudes be out here in the streets, and the streets have war in them. The streets have civil war within them. But yeah, that's my pick. Definitely 100% going with the Jokic brothers. But you tell me, hit me up on Twitter. Let me know what you think at FB_playbook, at the Ashton J, on Instagram at the Ashton Forever. Let me know. This is a question from Aaron that this is his hot take. This is a hot take. He says that Tyler Hero is just as good or has the same potential as Luka and Trey, and I heavily disagree. Tyler Hero has not been anywhere near as consistent in terms of like generating a shot. Tyler Hero also not the mastermind in terms of like dribbling and elite bucket getter. That's not a three-pointer, in my opinion, to be on the level of Luka and Trey, who are clearly on a step above in the league that is all the players who are significantly a step above, right? And maybe you can make the argument that Tyler Hero is not the focal point of his entire team, but facts are facts, man. Tyler Hero developing into, since that NBA Finals run that they were on, where Tyler Hero led them from behind the arc and was really their biggest three-point getter that helped them get to the NBA Finals. And then, everybody struggled in the finals because of the injuries and all that kind of jazz like that. But the fact of the matter is, Tyler Hero's panned out and looking really good. Wouldn't say he's on a superstar level with Luka Doncic and Trey. Wait, why did I just forget Ice Trey's name? Whatever. Moving on. But yeah, we got another one here. This is from JJ, from Josh. Russell Westbrook is the worst and most careless decision maker in NBA history, in my opinion. Is it possible for a team with him to win a championship? So, first of all, most reckless decision maker, I disagree with. I get where you're coming from in terms of like the turnover numbers and all that kind of jazz like that, but the fact of the matter is those turnover numbers for the most part are like pretty high because Russell Westbrook has the ball a ton, like significantly more than everybody else on his team or any team that he's been on up until he got to the Lakers, right? He turns the ball over. That's been a thing for him for quite some time. He's got like a quadruple double, right? He has like the points, rebound, assist, turnover quadruple double, right? But yeah, is it possible for a team to win with him? Obviously, yes, especially considering I feel like that Russell Westbrook is not this domineering overbearing force that everybody wants him to be. I think that Russell Westbrook understands exactly how to win. And like I've maintained, I've said it on the show before, he will do whatever it takes. And that includes destroying his own team to go out there and get a win. And when you get to the playoffs, you have teams that can overcome one great player, right? That happens all the time. That happens. That's usually what happens when you have like a superstar rookie, right? You saw it happen with the Knicks, right? They had Julius Randle, who emerged to kind of be like almost a superstar level for like a short period of time, right? In terms of his play, not like obviously the money and everything that goes with superstar level, but a star level player for a long period of time throughout the course of the regular season, and then they get to the playoffs and they kind of fall apart versus a Hawks team that admittedly went on to make a big run in the playoffs to take a giant leap forward in terms of like making sure all of that money they spent in free agency panned out and all that kind of jazz like that. But nonetheless, I think Russell Westbrook is more than capable of winning a championship. It's just about the fact that you have to convince Russell Westbrook to believe that you are the person to lead him to a championship, which does not happen. Like, I think that that's a huge thing that a lot of people just don't talk about. And I know that everybody's favorite thing is to shit on Russell Westbrook because of all the flaws in his game. But the fact of the matter is he does amazing things on a regular basis for a reason. He can't shoot, but guess what? He's got one of the best dribble drives to the hoop in the game. A lot of people were talking about how he had fallen off in terms of his athleticism. When he was with the Wizards. And I was like, you guys are out of your mind. Like, you guys are insane. But nonetheless, I think that you're more than capable of winning with Russell Westbrook. I understand that it didn't work out with Kevin Durant, and it didn't work out with that really, really high-quality Oklahoma City Thunder team. I would like to point out, if it didn't work out with Russell Westbrook, that means that it didn't work out with everybody else who's on the team, and it may not necessarily be only because of Russell Westbrook. I would like to also point out that nobody has been able to make the Thunder situation work out. And I am still thoroughly amazed about Sam Presti and his job. But I will say he does know how to draft him. I don't know about everything else, though. But yeah, I think he can. I 100% believe he can win a championship. I don't think there's players you can't win a championship with. I believe that there are players who you can't win championships with them being the spearhead of the attack to win the championship. It takes it's either you have a great overall team, which is kind of what the Bucks brought to the championship, right? Like, there's a lot of great teams that end up in the NBA Finals. There's no question about that. But at the fact of the matter is, you have to have like a prolific level player, right? Even the Dallas Mavericks YMCA team, right? They had Dirk Nowitzki, who's one of the greatest basketball players of all time, and they had a great team around him with other Hall of Famers. They had like 4 Hall of Famers on that YMCA team. But same thing. Like, I don't think that there's players you can't win championship with. It's just about the environment around them, and then do they believe that you are leading into a championship? In particular, in Russell Westbrook's case, for him to change the way that he plays basketball, you have to convince him that this is the path to winning if you play this way. And I think, that's why a lot of people believed in LeBron James and how this would work out with the Lakers. LeBron James, who's still hurt or whatever, but nonetheless, you know what I mean. This is the next question. Clay will come. It's actually a take. Clay will come back just as good as 2019. Clay and the Warriors will win the West handedly. This is from Tate here. So Clay will come back just as good as 2019. Clay and the Warriors will win the West handedly. So no, I disagree. Obviously, because I believe in the Utah Jazz, and that's a big part of it. The Utah Jazz made their way to. They were the best 3-point shooting team with the best defense in the NBA. Like, that's a hard thing. That's a hard thing to match. I will say that the Warriors definitely have a chance I expect them to make the playoffs. Like, this whole thing, like, if Clay comes back on Christmas or for Christmas Day, like we all suspect that he will, or what we've been told is right, he could be ready for Christmas Day or like after Christmas. They get him back that early in this season? Oh yeah. It's on and popping. Like, I think that's the case. And I think, of course, there's going to take so many games for Clay to get back to actual NBA conditioning, because remember, he hasn't played NBA basketball in 2 years, essentially. Who would have thought that last time we saw Klay Thompson play basketball, it would be him walking out of Oracle Arena before it shut down when they lost to the Toronto Raptors, which seems like an eternity ago. And here we are, finally, Klay Thompson on the track to be able to play again. We will see how it all shakes out, but nonetheless, man, I definitely see Klay getting back to his shooting ability level. Not necessarily the defensive aspect of it, because that takes some other things to go along, in particular like speed and agility and cutting and all that kind of stuff, which if you've been paying attention to Klay Thompson's injuries, that's going to be severely hampered because he hasn't done it at an NBA level in, like we said, for a while. And I know he's done practice and all that kind of jazz like that, and I'm sure he's done as close to the real thing as he possibly could without actually being out there in an NBA game. But Klay Thompson was the quietest superstar in the NBA because he does have the shoe deal. Like, he still has the shoe deal going on. It's just with Anta, right? But nonetheless, I think Klay Thompson coming back, very reasonable to understand his three-point shooting is going to be relatively the same or pretty close to the same or whatever, but the defensive aspect of his game I'm very worried about. But and of course the Warriors are a significantly worse team since the last time Klay Thompson played on it, which is crazy to think about. But yeah, him coming back is going to be huge. They need everybody else to step up. Like Andrew Wiggins went off last night versus the Minnesota Timberwolves. Need him to do that every night instead of showing up for just like one game. What's your bet? This is from Fraser, who's one of our international listeners. What's your best team of NBA players to never have won a ring in their careers, past or current players? Best. So I thought this question was about like group of players that lost in the NBA or NBA Finals or something like that. What's the best team of NBA players to never have won a ring in their careers, past or current players? Oh man. So I was gonna say, never mind. Let's do this. I had it pulled up in a different one. Where's that document? Man. I think I found it. I think we got this, guys. Yeah, Fraser, I did way too much research for this question, and I think I misunderstood it now that I read it aloud. But we're gonna see. Let's see. All right, let's see if we can make this happen. Obviously, I'm not going to say something. I'm not going to hit you with a top 75, you know what I mean? Where they put players who were playing before the leagues merged together. But teams that lost the NBA championship. I mean, obviously, the right answer is that Miami Heat team that Eastern Finals Miami Heat team that the Mavericks beat in the NBA Finals on that like magical run, right? The other, I mean, I guess I would say that's definitely the team that, in my most recent memory, that first Miami Heat team to get to the championship with LeBron James. Not even the other Miami Heat team won, the one that had Dwayne Wade and Shaq and everybody on it. Anyway, that being said, I was definitely feeling like the San Antonio, that Cleveland Cavaliers team that won that first one that LeBron got to the NBA Finals. Not even feeling it. But yeah, straight up, the first Dallas Maverick team, that the first Miami Heat team that Rick Carlisle and the Dallas Mavericks, the YMCA team is what I call them. That's 2011. I call them the YMCA team because they're a bunch of old guys that would kill you from the outside, from range, because they've been taking the same shot for longer than you've been alive, so it doesn't actually matter what you do defensively in front of them. Other than make contact with them, you can't stop them from getting into their shot, and they make it every single time. So like that's why I call them the YMCA team, because there's so many. If you've ever played pickup basketball, you've seen those guys before. You've played against those guys where they just take the same shot, even though it looks janky as hell, it goes down, because they've been taking the same shot at pickup basketball every single day for the past like 20 years. Right? Regardless, they've seen the leaves and the colors change and all that kind of stuff like that, and they're still taking the same shot, no matter how broken it is. But yeah, the Miami Heat team that the YMCA Dallas Mavericks beat is probably like the best team that I've seen that did not win a championship straight up, though. Looking at some of these other ones, man, like the Miami Heat getting 4 straight trips to the finals and then getting beat by like legendary teams, right? Like the Mavericks team, that's their first championship, all that kind of stuff like that. But then losing to 2014 to the Spurs, man, that was a That was a tough one. When Kawhi Leonard emerged and that famous clip where LeBron James is at the free throw line and super pissed that Kawhi Leonard gets subbed into the game, which is understandable as well. But I believe that's my pick, especially since it's like so recent. So I know that that's like some of the best athletes that have ever been in the NBA, because it wasn't just D Wade, it wasn't just LeBron, it wasn't just Chris Bosh, it was Ray Allen and all those guys like that. That team was fucking stacked. And they still were not able to beat out the high-caliber Dallas Mavericks team. Like, that was just, honestly, the epitome of team of destiny, right? Like, the one time the Spurs won the championship when they were, like, the 6th seed or something like that. They, like, started the dynasty way back in the day. But, yeah, that's my pick for best group of players that's never won a championship is the 2011 Miami Heat. Facts. That simple. This is a question from @House_Strauss. So HAWS_STRAUSS. I'm not saying that again, just back it up and listen to it again. He says Patrick Mahomes would have looked no different than Zach Wilson if he started his first year, and watching Alex Smith play was critical for his development. So, man, it's hard to believe that, mainly because Patrick Mahomes is like 10 times the athlete that Zach Wilson is, and Zach Wilson's pretty athletic. Also, Patrick Mahomes, like, decision-making. And like we mentioned before, we can all reference that episode of The Shop with LeBron James where Patrick Mahomes has that whole conversation about, I'm not even reading defenses. I didn't even start reading defenses until like 2 years ago, right? That kind of thing, where he's able to go out there and read the situation and come up with some kind of solution, some kind of answer that helps out in the long run. I think that that's vastly important to this whole situation as well. There's very clearly a higher level of talent that Patrick Mahomes had than Zach Wilson. And I do not agree that they would look the same, mainly because the product of Zach Wilson looking so bad is definitely a reflection of the level of talent that the Jets have on their team, which is some of the lowest in the like in comparison to other teams in the NBA, in the NFL. Like, overall, they just do not have like a high level of like really talented football players on their team, which is part of the reason they had to go get Robert Saleh, right? To go find those high quality football players that play his style of defense the way that he wants to play it. Because if you're going to pick one side to really develop on, it probably should be the defensive side, because the offense, like, you know, if everybody's zigging, you got to zag kind of deal. But nonetheless, I disagree with that statement that it would look exactly the same. I fervently believe that Patrick Mahomes has a lot more natural talents and a lot more natural gifts, that not even natural gifts, like more honed skill than Zach Wilson did when he's starting his rookie season. Of course, I can say that now because we have seen Patrick Mahomes play, but honestly, like, even Patrick Mahomes' rookie season, he was just kind of, you know, like, you saw the wild stuff that he was okay with doing. I don't think that came from sitting down for an entire year. Did that help him learn the playbook inside and out? Yes. I think that's a big part of his success overall. Also, the Zach Wilson coaching situation is drastically different, but I don't think they would look bad I don't think Patrick Mahomes would look anywhere near as bad, because Zach Wilson just like throws the ball to the opposing defense sometimes. He's going through development right now. He's currently hurt and injured and all that kind of stuff like that. He's going to be back, and he's going to get more opportunities to play if the Jets are smart. That was our last question. We're going to our hydration break. When we come back, we got one thing to talk about that's not NFL football related. Then we're going to do a quick breakdown of each one of the games coming up for week 10 of the NFL season. I'll give you my picks as I go for my redemption week after going 5 for 14 last week, which is a little rough. 5 out of 14. So like the overall record was what, 5 and 8 or something like that overall. But yeah, I'll do that. We're going to take a hydration break. The song is probably going to be longer because I actually have to go pee during this hydration break because I drank too much water in the first hydration break. That's right, guys. Hydration is not a joking manner. Let's see. Any suggestions in the chat? No suggestions, which means I get to pick. We're going Dreaming in the Flames by Christina Gugas. We'll be right back right here on the Broke Boy Sports Podcast. 3 minutes and 23 seconds. We're back here live on the Broke Boy Sports Podcast as we're about to power through a couple of things here. We are going to give you picks for every single game of Week 10 of the NFL season. You guys like my addition to the background over here? If you can't see because you're not watching on YouTube or Twitch, first of all, I totally understand. If you're listening to me in the car, I appreciate that. If you're listening to me at all, at any point in time in human history, I appreciate you. If you're listening to me in the past, 2020 is going to be a bitch. I would suggest you stock up on the hand sanitizer, physically hand sanitizer, but also buy that hand sanitizer stock, whatever company owns Purell. Trust me, it's going to pay off in the long run. What other if you were if somebody in the past is listening to this podcast right now, what company would you tell them to invest in? Probably Charmin, overall. Charmin, I would tell you to sell all of your gas stocks, your stocks in oil and gas. I would tell you to sell all those. What else? What else would I tell you to buy? Any form of streaming service that you can possibly put any money behind investing in, or any type of entertainment production company. Side note, definitely going to get a lot of looks here pretty soon. What else? Invest in computer gear and then resell it on the internet. Like graphics cards, just buy as many as you possibly can in the year. If you're in the year 2019 or 2020, if you're in the year 2020, it's already too late. If you're in the year 2019 and you're listening to this podcast, buy graphics cards, hold on to them, and then double how much you want to charge for them in 2020, because there's going to be a shortage. You'll see. It was kind of a miracle that we even got this rig built, guys. I'm not even going to lie to you. So, don't know where my buddy, shout out Eddie Zapata, a guy who consistently listens to the show. He hooked me up with a graphics card, an extra one that he had because he's a nerd. So he had an extra graphics card laying around kind of deal. Other stuff. What was I going to say? Man, this episode has taught me I need to get back on the bicep curls. So if you're watching and you don't know me personally, you don't follow me on my Instagram or whatever, I look like a fat slob. I just want you to know I squat over 350 pounds and deadlift over 400 and curl 40-pound dumbbells. Yeah, I'm one of those fat guys. I just wanted to know because I look terrible on this camera right now. My face looks nice or whatever and all that kind of jazz like that. I got the good lighting on the shout out to the ring light, but my arms look like fucking lunch meat. I did not notice that. I still have the same level of strength. They just look bad, and it's probably because I probably weigh so much more than I should right now. We're gonna work on it though. We work on it every single Monday and all the other days of the week too. So, what else? Accidentally burned 8,000 calories this week, by the way. What is it? Tuesday, I burned 8,000 calories. Or Wednesday, I burned 8,000 calories. I did a speed and agility workout in my backyard, and then I went to go play pickup basketball for an hour. It was pickup 3v3, so it was a lot of movement around and stuff like that. So it actually was really good agility testing and speed testing and conditioning as well. And I burned 8,000 calories in a single day. Not great. I'm not gonna lie. And my resting heart rate is a 62 right now, so it's not. I mean, it's just literally because I'm so large. It's literally because I weigh over 300 pounds. But I just wanted people to know who are watching at home that I am not a Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Well, I am, but I can lift stuff up. I can lift heavy things. That's what my medal says. Lift heavy things. We should probably get back to talking to sports. Anyway, if you're listening on the podcast, I apologize for that whole rant. Not really, I don't care. Stuff going on in sports. This is actually super important. And I need to know a lot about Aldwin Rodriguez, who is now the Uno World Champion. First of all, I want to see videos on Uno strategy. I want to check out Uno strategy. He probably also is a really good card counter. There's just no way around it. He's a 20-year-old engineer, and by Uno hosted a tournament, and he actually won the Uno World Championship. He got a trophy for it and everything. You can look him up on Twitter. Aldwin Rodriguez, Aldwin Rodriguez. And he's a college student engineer. He won the Uno World Championship, right? And my follow-up question is, how good are Aldwin's hands? I gotta know I gotta know how many fights Aldwin's been in. Because if you're Uno world champion, you had to fight at least 10 people to even get to the tournament to qualify to win the championship, right? Like, you hurt somebody so bad in qualifiers, you got to go out there and really do your thing, right? And I don't know, man. Maybe they stopped the fighting at the championship tournament, but it's hard for me to believe that when you get to the finals of Uno championship for like the whole world title type deal, that motherfucker's not trying to fight afterwards. Especially when you see the trophy. If you see the trophy beforehand, the trophy is a gigantic cup that you can drink out of. It is amazing. And my favorite, I think I've told people on this trophy, this podcast before, my favorite type of trophy is one that you can drink alcohol out of. So, because that is the epitome of sports celebration to me. Taking the thing that you took all that time to earn and then celebrating so hard that you drank, like, hopefully hard liquor out of. But nonetheless, I am super pumped. Well, not pumped or whatever. I just need to know, Aldrin Rodriguez, do you have hands? Do you have it like that? I honestly would love to interview him on this podcast. I might, as a matter of fact. I might ask him to see if he does a podcast interview. He's like 20 years old, so of course he's going to say yeah. Maybe he's too big time now. He didn't really have like a ton of followers when I found him on Twitter. So, somebody, okay, that's not cool. Somebody's like calling me on Snapchat right now. I don't know why. So we move on. We talk about Week 10. Week 10's already started. We're going to do a breakdown of what happened on Thursday Night Football on next week's NFL-only episode. But we move on and we talk about the actual Sunday action here. The Atlanta Falcons are taking on the Dallas Cowboys. That's a 1 p.m. game. The Falcons have been flying pretty high here lately. I cannot deny that they've been going out here and winning games. The question is the quality of the wins. And I think that is something, especially in the NFL, that's a very valid question. You can't control who you're scheduled, but you can control how you win the games. And so far, let's see. The Falcons have 4 wins and 4 losses. Their 4 wins are versus the Miami Dolphins, the New York Giants, the New York Jets, who, by the way, that was Zach Wilson as the quarterback, and then the New Orleans Saints with Trevor Siemian at about halfway through when Jameis tore his ACL, right? So it begs the question of, like, are the Falcons good? Or are they going out there and they're doing what we like to call eating the trash, right? Like, they're just they're going out there and feasting upon some abandoned Cheetos that didn't make it all the way to the trash bin like a little raccoon. Is that what the Falcons are? Are they the Atlanta Raccoons out here and they're just eating the trash? Anyway, all the teams that they've beaten have shown like some form of capability in being able to play at a high level for very short periods of time. The Miami Dolphins are probably, out of the teams that they've beaten, the New Orleans Saints are the best. The Miami Dolphins are right behind them, and then the Giants are better than the Jets by like a lot, as a matter of fact. All those teams have kind of shown the capability to win, but nonetheless, like overall, none of those teams are probably going to be making the playoffs, especially the Saints with their current quarterback situation again, right? So that's a tough one. The Cowboys, on the other hand, took a really nasty loss to the Broncos, which happens especially when you're playing against Teddy Two Gloves. You better step up and have it strapped up, ladies and gentlemen, if you want to try and compete with the Two Gloves. Vic Fangio, one of the best defensive coordinators in the game, who is now a head coach, calling the shots and all that kind of stuff like that. They got a top 5 defense any given week, any given day of the week when you talk about playing in the NFL, right? I think personally, because of the injury situation, this game could be like relatively close, but for the most part, I am banking on a complete blowout on the part of the Cowboys. We've seen the Falcons come up with like some really clutch plays, especially with Cordero Patterson, but the Cowboys are going to be without Tyron Smith again, so they'll be starting Terrence Steele at left tackle, and then at right tackle they will have Lyle Collins. Micah Parsons is going to be the only like primary starting edge rusher, except the D tackles up front, because DeMarcus Lawrence and Randy Gregory are now on. Both of them are on IR. Micah Parsons, who, by the way, does lead the team in pressures, is back out there at a primary edge rusher for the Cowboys. Matt Ryan, plus time, because you have to assume that there's going to be some kind of drop-off in terms of the pass rush for the Dallas Cowboys. Matt Ryan getting time in the pocket. Bad news for everybody involved. That's not on the Falcons. So that's what I think could actually feed into this being like relatively close. And on top of that, I think we're at a point now where we got to see what Trayvon Diggs' next move is going to be, right? We have to imagine that he has to figure out some other way to be effective besides generating turnovers, right? Like, he just has to go out there and be an effective corner, and that takes time. I think the whole, like, it's really weird that the catching interceptions thing came so naturally to him, because I think that's a product of what a lot of football people like to call instincts, right? Like, the ability to realize, like, the flow of the play is going this way, these routes are set up a certain way, what route is being run over there influences the route that's being run on the opposite side of the field, and then the progression of the quarterback to those routes is important as well. But yeah, that's something. Also, one thing that definitely makes it seem like this could be a blowout, the Falcons have the second to last defensive line, well, really just defense in terms of like getting pressure and getting sacks upon opposing quarterbacks. So it sounds like even with the backup tackles that are in, or one backup tackle and a tackle that's been moved to another position, they are going to be able to go out there and cook. Because guess what? The Falcons defense is about as close to opposite as you can get when it comes to the Denver Broncos. I'll take the Cowboys reluctantly, like I've said before. A couple of things to watch in this game. Watch A.J. Terrell wherever he's going to be on the field. I believe his number is 21, so check him out. He's the best, probably the best defensive players that the Falcons actually have. So definitely worth watching him play. Michael Gallup is coming back in this game as well, off IR since like week 2 or week 3 or something like that. And that's all I really got in terms of that one. So I'm picking the Cowboys. The Jacksonville Jaguars are playing the Indianapolis Colts. This is an AFC South matchup, and as you guys know, the divisional stuff is always a little hairy to pick because anybody can be anybody in a divisional matchup. Like, for instance, like you talk about where the Tennessee Titans ended up in the playoffs, the second round of the playoffs. You can talk about how they ended up in the playoffs and the Texans were literally 2 plays away from beating them multiple times. Like, they were 1 defensive stop away from beating the Tennessee Titans, and then they were 1 defensive stop away from beating them the second time around. And those 2 teams ended up in exact polar opposite situations. That's how divisional matchups work, right? Like, bad teams are really competitive against good teams because of familiarity and other aspects as well. Coaches having understandings of your scheme and then playing a team a second time in the same season. Both teams are coming off pretty big wins in really different manners. Like, the Jacksonville Jaguars pulled a massive upset. The Colts just beat the shit out of a team that we all expected them to beat the shit out of. But yeah, the divisional familiarity is going to definitely muddy the waters because some teams get forced to play outside of character, right? And you have to ask yourself, like, which team gets way more off kilter when they're forced to do something that they're not very good at. I'd be interested to see what people think who is the better quarterback right now. Trevor Lawrence is playing in this game. He just recently got cleared. I think it was a concussion or whatever. He got cleared injury-wise. He's going to play in this game. But the fact of the matter is the Colts have a ton of ways that they can actually beat the Jacksonville Jaguars. They have some relative balance to how their offense works, and their defense has stepped up at key moments for them, in particular on third down. All the other downs, they've had the last 4 games, they have generated 7 turnovers. Like, they've also played really bad teams in the course of those 7 games. So they have scored 30-plus points in their last 4 games. They lost one of those games because they played the only team that they faced in the last, month and a half that has had a winning record. So they played the Tennessee Titans, and the Titans beat them 34-31 in overtime after the Colts blew the lead to lose by 3, right? It's just one of those situations. I personally would believe the Jags have a shot in this game if they don't turn the ball over. And I don't think that's not... The Jags have had 1 game this entire season where they have not turned the ball over in some way, shape, or form, and it was versus the Bengals when they played them 24-21 somehow. I don't know. I think that was Joe McPherson's second game-winning kick or something like that. But yeah, that was really weird. They did not have a turnover in that game, and they were able to hang with a playoff caliber Cincinnati Bengals team, right? If they can go out here and pull that off, they probably can beat the Colts because that's probably the only shot that they got to go out here and be able to really get this together. One big thing to take away from this, Xavier Rhodes is not going to be playing, but T.Y. Hilton is. I think T.Y. Hilton, of course, is adding his skill set to a wide receiver core that is pretty decent across the board. Zach Pascal, Michael Pittman Jr., and T.Y. Hilton, that's pretty good combination. And then with Mo Alley Cox mixed in there, very, very good. Plus the run game from Jonathan Taylor is probably going to be what really leads the way for the Colts in this one, because it's a way to keep the ball out of Carson Wentz's hands, which if Frank Wright knows what he's doing, which he kind of does most of the time, we need more carries for Jonathan Taylor. We have 50 carries for Jonathan Taylor. We need more carries. That's how it is. They want that. They want to become the Wisconsin Badgers. Like, they want to slowly transform themselves into the Wisconsin Badgers, especially with their offensive line 100% healthy. So, big game coming up for the Colts in terms of trying to continue to be in the AFC South playoff hunt. Even though they've already been swept by the Tennessee Titans, they basically have to keep winning to bank on the fact that somebody will beat the Titans and give them a shot to end up with one more divisional win than the Titans, I think is the way it's set up. But I think if they lose, the Titans basically clinch the AFC South. I think that's what it's come down to. Anyway, that's all I got on that. I'm picking the Colts. Obviously, they're the more talented team, and also they seem to be the team right now that understands themselves better out of the Jags, even though the Jags seem to understand themselves way more in terms of like what they're good at and what they're not good at than they did in week one. Like, they are, like, the Texans are definitively the worst team in the AFC South because the Jaguars understand like how they win games or they understand their path to victory. The Texans do not. Cleveland versus the New England Patriots. This one is interesting. Cleveland versus the New England Patriots, 1 p.m. game. This probably should be one of the best games you watch all of Sunday, so you should make sure to go out of your way to make sure you watch this one. This should be a good one. It's two of the best defenses in the NFL. I know that's, defense playing. Football is slowly but surely being outlawed by the NFL. The Cleveland Browns have two of the best pressure getters in the NFL, Jadeveon Clowney and Myles Garrett. I don't know, I said Jason Garrett. Myles Garrett. And they also have, as we're seeing, one of the deadliest secondaries in the NFL as well. They had a really good week versus the Bengals, a team they're very familiar with from just a week ago. They're playing against the New England Patriots team that has a rookie quarterback who also has had his by the way, if you go look at the injury report for the Patriots, it is crazy how many defensive players are on that thing. So they got that going for them. The Browns, I feel like I'm the defense guy, and I feel like I gotta go with the better defense out of the two of them, which ironically enough, as we sit here right now talking about this, is the New England Patriots. The Patriots have the fifth. They're fifth in DVOA this season. It's a defensive DVOA, which is amazing to think about. But when you think about like the grand scheme of things for the Browns have been hurt the entire year. They really haven't had their secondary healthy. So the fact that they have so much talent on defense has not actually been readily present, because they've had injuries that have hampered them from being at 100%. But in this matchup, I'm feeling the Browns. I'm feeling the Browns in another big win, man. I really am. Especially since Kevin Stefanski is a guy who's willing to do things that throw off opposing teams. We talk about his aggressiveness versus the Kansas City Chiefs, right? And how that was like the start of the season. The Browns came out and they let them know like immediately that they were here to finish this game off as soon as they could possibly finish this game off. If it comes down to a game-winning drive, sad to say, the numbers are stacking up that you should probably pick whatever opponent Baker Mayfield is going against on a possible game-winning drive, because he has struggled mightily this year to come up with them. But we'll see the Odell Beckham Jr. list Cleveland Browns, what they're going to be about. And also they'll be without Nick Chubb, Demetric Felton, and Kareem Hunt again. So Dearness Johnson about to get mad carries if you are a fantasy person. The Buffalo Bills in this situation, this is a 1 p.m. game. They're taking on the Jets. You can take whatever you want to take from what happened last week. You can talk about how that was the example of when the Bills really kind of ran out of the juice that comes when they improvise, and the Jaguars gave them no room to improvise, and that's why they got completely decimated. You can talk about Mike White starting at quarterback again, because that's an important aspect of this as well in terms of how the game plan is going to evolve, especially considering like Mike White has the ability to distribute the ball a lot better than Zach Wilson right now in the NFL. We'll see what happens, especially, Josh Johnson is behind him. So if things do go south, they can put Josh Johnson in and see if they can work some magic again. Anyway, I have a feeling the Bills won't fall for the same trap that's what got the Bengals in trouble versus the Jets, and that's allowing the underneath stuff to go. Big injury for the Bills, though, in this one is Tremaine Edmunds, who's like one of their best linebackers. He's actually the leading tackler on the team, and he's also he's one of those linebackers that has a ton of speed. And so he's really useful in case the opponent that you're going up against tries to manipulate the personnel. Like they try and put 3 wide receivers in, and you're in like your base package that has 3 linebackers out there. He's a guy who can actually like hold his own to a certain degree versus receivers, depending upon the route that they're running. Right. So there's that. And don't forget that the performance that you saw last week, you can squarely put on the shoulders of the Bills' offense, not the Bills' defense. So as long as that's going to be the case, combine that with the fact the Jets are coming off their worst defensive performance of the season versus the Colts, who the Bills are significantly better than. I would bank on the Bills winning this divisional matchup and getting out here and taking their another step towards winning the AFC West. We'll see. The Detroit Lions are taking on the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm not even going to lie. I actually think the Lions can win this one. Jamal Williams, but especially based off of what happened on Monday Night Football with oh, wow. Sorry about that. That me racking the microphone for some reason. But yeah, they don't have Jamal Williams, who's been really clutch for them in the red zone. Chase Claypool is going to be out in this game. Not to say that he's actually seen a ton of balls thrown his way or whatever. He's been like the over-the-top home run kind of wide receiver this year, as opposed to what we saw last year, a great variety of routes where he got the ball over the middle of the field and all that kind of jazz. But the Steelers, nonetheless, are... Man, they looked really vulnerable on Monday Night Football, but I don't think they're vulnerable enough to lose to the Lions. I guess we'll find out. I'm picking the Steelers in that one, although I want it to be known that it's reluctantly based off of the offensive performance that I saw from the Steelers, who basically, after their first drive, shut down and got mad help from weird penalty calls. Some of them were justified, some of them were not. Let's be honest. The Saints are taking on the Tennessee Titans. They will not have Alvin Kamara, which of course readily makes me think that this is, by the way, two of the best running backs in the NFL not going to be playing not going to be playing in this game, which is wild to think about. The Titans have had a ton of help the last couple of weeks because they've had the ability to generate turnovers. Don't know how that's going to factor into what we're dealing with here. Are they going to be able to generate turnovers versus the Saints? Maybe, but there's also another aspect of this, like we said before earlier. The Saints basically have like a top 5 defense on any given day, and really they have the kind of corners that can cover AJ Brown and Julio Jones, who's supposedly going to be playing this week. We'll see. Which, by the way, like one of the saddest stories of the entire NFL season is Julio Jones not being healthy enough to play consistently. I will, in this game, take the Tennessee Titans off the simple fact that the Titans, even for what you have to say about the defense or whatever, I have a bigger issue. The unit that's going to probably struggle the most in this game will more than likely be the offense, because the Saints defense is just that good in terms of like getting pressure up the middle, especially when they don't have to worry about a legitimate run game. So maybe Adrian Peterson can find a way to get some more juice out of those legs. I know he just got to the team and all that kind of stuff, and that does hinder your ability significantly in terms of reading people's body language and stuff like that. So they're going to need to find a way to scheme up some runs, because if they can't get simplistic, and there's one thing about the Titans, they will try all sorts of ways to move the ball up and down the field, and I respect that out of them. But this is going to be a big challenge. I will say another big challenge is David Long Jr., who's been the exceptional linebacker for the Titans that they drafted this year, is not going to be playing in this game because of a hamstring injury. So, that mojo that they've been dealing with, protecting passes over the middle is going to be really important, really instrumental in trying to stop the Saints' very limited short-range pass offense, man. So. Tampa Bay Buccaneers versus, by the way, I'm picking the Titans in that game. I don't know if I said that or not. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Washington football team. So the Buccaneers are like 10 times more clutch than the Washington football team. And also Washington's defense is like not spectacular. They for the pass rush that they have is good. Too bad the Tampa Bay Buccaneers offensive line significantly better. The Buccaneers have been struggling mightily, I will admit. They've had a ton of injuries at the defensive back position. As a matter of fact, they put a defensive back on IR this week. They are getting Sean Murphy-Bunting back, which is surprising based off of what happened to him the first week of the season. He's coming back off IR and will be playing in this game. He's like a legitimate starter for their secondary too. He's not like a guy that they had to pull off from the practice squad or like from the depth or anything like that. He's a legitimate starter for them, and that'll go a long way, especially considering it seems like Curtis Samuels might not play in this game for the Washington football team, and they might become one-dimensional. So we'll find out, man, and this is a good opportunity for and then Sam Cosmi is also on the injury report. Sam Cosmi is like the exceptional offensive lineman that Washington recently drafted, but this is a chance for that Buccaneers pass rush to get after Taylor Heineke, who, by the way, does have the wheels to be able to move and stuff like that. But I will say very, very susceptible to pressure, which is why that his game versus the New York Giants on Thursday Night Football was so close, and he's had a bunch of his game versus the Broncos was so close. and they've basically most of this season they've lost by like one possession in a lot of cases, especially against teams that they're supposed to be, in theory, able to beat. And I don't think they can beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But only time will tell. I'm taking the Buccaneers just off the simple fact that I believe in their defense, and I think that they're going to come out here, despite the fact they won't have Antonio Brown or Rob Gronkowski, they got plenty of other offensive talent to be able to make things happen for them. Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, admittedly is a game-time decision. I did hear that Scotty Miller might play in this game. That'll be sick. I'm taking the Buccaneers. They're the better team overall, and they are, banking on some pressure to get to Taylor Heineke, which has not been very difficult this season, and has set them up for success. The Carolina Panthers at the Cardinals. This is the Fox Game of the Week, depending upon what part of the country you're in, basically. The Kyler Murray situation is a game-time decision. Looks like everybody else is going to be back. Like DeAndre Hopkins is going to be back, which is going to be key because Stephon Gilmore, the ghillie suit, like I mentioned before, is back. DeAndre Hopkins and Stephon Gilmore back in this game. If Kyler Murray does play, you have to imagine in some way, shape, or form, he's going to be hampered in terms of his ability to move around the field, which will definitely play into the fact that the Carolina Panthers have a pretty decent pass rush, a slightly above average pass rush. And by the way, this situation is exactly what happened to the Cardinals last year. They got out to a really hot start. Kyler Murray got an ankle injury about like halfway through the season, and in the back half of the season, they fell off a cliff because Kyler couldn't roll out to the pocket with enough pace to be able to make plays down the field. Hopefully, with the amount of wide receiver talent and the way that they're running their option routes for every wide receiver, they're going to have more time. Pass protection is going to be paramount in this game. They are going up against a pretty good pass rush up front. But I think overall, with the way that the defense played against the 49ers versus these Carolina Panthers with P.J. Walker at the starting position, people are talking about Cam Newton could play this week. P.J. Tucker knows the playbook better than Cam Newton does. Joe Brady, Cam started the week on the sideline, by the way. Started the week on the sideline working on stuff with the quarterbacks coach and everything like that. I think they're better off playing P.J. Walker because there's familiarity with everything. But nonetheless, I think the Cardinals have the big advantage here in terms of like what their defense can do to the Panthers offense, especially with the way that they covered run fits versus a heavy run team like the 49ers last week that we saw. Isaiah Simmons is getting better and better every single week, man. People were talking about how he was, a tweener, which means that he sucks kind of deal because he's not good at one position, he's not good at the other, but he's still, for some reason, multiple pass deflections, really good pass coverage grade, all that kind of jazz like that. I'm going with the Cardinals to beat the Carolina Panthers. Wouldn't be surprised if they made this one close because of the Kyler Murray injury situation and if Colt McCoy is forced to play. I would not be surprised if this was like a really close one. Minnesota Vikings at the Los Angeles Chargers, because remember, this one should be interesting because it is the meeting of the two teams who are basically polar opposites of each other this season. We mentioned it on if you did not watch the Week 9 review episode of what happened in Week 9 of the NFL season, the Chargers are 4-2 in games that are one possession or less, that are determined by one possession or less, right? Last year, they were 0-9 at one point in those type of games. The Minnesota Vikings, I think, have won like one game that has been close this entire season. Every other one, they've lost in overtime. So they're like the Spider-Man meme, except no, they're like, it's like pointing at yourself in Bizarro Land on the mirror. That's what it is. But yeah, the Chargers and the Vikings right there, that should be interesting. But this is the weird part. The Vikings secondary can be had, and I think that was indicative of a lot of things that the Ravens were able to do in the back half of that game. They have 4 players who are in the top 40 of yards surrendered per completion. And in particular, Bashaud Breeland has given up like double-digit yards per completion because he's like covering number 1 wide receivers on the most part. But yeah, I'm feeling the Chargers. I really am. Even if the game is close, I'm feeling the Chargers. My number one concern, obviously, like it is every single week we talk about the Chargers, they are hands down the worst run defense in the NFL. They are going up against one of the best running backs in the NFL. They're going up against a decent quarterback in terms of Kirk Cousins. You could talk about how Kirk Cousins isn't consistently great or consistent just in general or whatever, but the fact of the matter is Dalvin Cook is consistent. that's a problem. That's going to be the biggest issue here because because if they're able to run the ball successfully, they are going to tire out the defense at the beginning of the game, which means the second half could turn into like a shootout between Justin Herbert and Kirk Cousins, depending on what happens and all that kind of jazz. But also, they control the clock as long as they're able to run the ball. And if they really feel like Justin Herbert and the Chargers are really running up, they're scoring too easily, too quickly, and they want to give time to their defense to actually catch their breath and really figure out a way to kind of attack and put themselves in a positive situation, they're going to use the shit out of Dalvin Cook and everybody else, CJ Ham, all those guys, to run the ball down their throat, and the Chargers won't have a response to it. So we'll see what happens if they make some kind of adjustment that helps them in some way, shape, or form. Because like I said, in almost every run category, they are dead last this season. Oh, man. The Eagles are taking on the Denver Broncos. This should be an interesting matchup. The Broncos will be missing both their left and right tackles in the course of this game. They will also be missing, looks like they're going to be missing Patrick Surtain, who is one of their star corners. Oh, my bad. Somebody got in Poo Poo McDo, who, by the way, really good streamer. You should definitely check him out. That's my boy Leif out there, who has recovered from one of the nastiest injuries I've ever seen in Quidditch. He broke his kneecap, which is wild. Anyway, shout out Poo Poo McDo for hopping in the chat. I did not see you. I did not see the messenger. I gotta figure that out, guys. If anybody knows how I can see messages while I'm doing my stream in some way, shape, or form, or I get an alert or something, please let me know. The Eagles take on the Broncos. This will be interesting. The Eagles' defensive line has always been pretty consistently good, and they are going up against a team that's going to have backups at right and left tackle, and they're also going to have a defense. They're facing a Broncos defense that is missing one of their best corners, which could result in this game becoming down to one possession. And honestly, and this could be my heavy bias that goes along with this, man, if they run the ball like they're supposed to, they should win this game versus the Broncos, man. They should. And I get it. What you're probably going to see a lot of is a lot of back and forth from the Eagles and the Broncos because the secondary for the Eagles has been struggling mightily, is the nice way to phrase it. But yeah, other than that, I can't. I'm going to watch this game. It's going to be a ton of fun. I want to see a full Broncos game on my own, and I think that this is a perfect opportunity to see it, especially to check in on the Eagles in their current situation. I've watched the replays and everything. I watched the replay of them playing Washington. I watched the replay of them playing the Cowboys, but this is an interesting mix of things because what did the Cowboys in is their lack of ability to adjust, which is, that's the responsibility of one person. I'll let you determine who that is. The Seattle Seahawks are taking on the Green Bay Packers. Both of these teams have been missing their starting quarterbacks. They are supposed to be returning. Russell Wilson and Aaron Rodgers are supposed to be returning in theory. This will be a good matchup to see defense versus offense in this situation. The offense of the Seattle Seahawks versus the defense of the Green Bay Packers, who have been tested mightily the last couple of weeks. They played against the Kansas City Chiefs really, really well, held them to 13 points, which you say that last year and you just lose your mind. If you probably have a top 5 defense all time. In some people's theories, if you can hold the Chiefs of last year and the year before that to 13 points in a single football game. But nonetheless, the Seahawks and the Packers are going to duke this one out. The interesting thing is whether or not Aaron Rodgers will play. According to him, he's basically got the most minute of minute medical things that he has to pass, because remember his whole deal was he's not vaccinated, so he has to be quarantined for 10 days, and then he has to keep testing negative over the course of those 10 days. As soon as it's over, we will see just how available he is in the course of this game. But this game looks like it'll go towards this. This game is going to be a test for the Seattle Seahawks defense, which looked pretty good before they were going into the bye week, and one thing I know for sure, it's going to be a real struggle for them to get pressure on Aaron Rodgers. They've done a decent job against offensive lines that are mediocre. And a lot of Packers fans will tell you that their offensive line is objectively bad or below average kind of deal. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I think that their offensive line has been hurt for a vast majority of the time, and now they're starting to get a little bit healthier. The situation that is going to really be interesting is who the interesting situation is how they're going to defend both DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett with all the injuries they have in the secondary. So that's the thing to look at for this one overall. But it's hard for me to pick against the Seahawks, man. It really, every single time, it really is. So I will take the Seattle Seahawks in this one off the strength that I feel like they can win a shootout with the Packers, which is asking a lot. It really is. The Packers look like one of the best teams in the NFL for a reason, and even when they were missing their starting quarterback, they still had a path to victory with their backup. You know what? Nope, that's my upset pick. I'm going with the Seahawks. Seahawks randomly win that game versus the Packers, even though the Seahawks aren't like really an upset team. The Kansas City Chiefs are taking on the Las Vegas Raiders, who I guess we'll find out if their team is like completely falling apart, because they were one of the teams that fell victim to the turnover stuff last week, right? They had 3 turnovers, including one on the final potential game-winning drive that they had. They had an interception thrown. They had a fumble they had a strip sack that got the ball back to the New York team that threw the ball 20 times last week. So not looking great. Not looking great in this one. And honestly, the Kansas City Chiefs should win this one pretty handedly. No victory laps around the not the Roomba. What is it called? What is the name? Allegiant Stadium. No victory laps around Allegiant Stadium. Kansas City looked rough versus the Green Bay Packers. There's no question about that whatsoever. I think that the Chiefs have a better understanding of the Raiders. That'll help them in the long run. And if it comes down to somebody not being able to turn the ball over, despite Derek Carr and the Raiders trying their damnedest, I don't think that they're going to turn the ball. I think that they will turn the ball over more than the Kansas City Chiefs in their current state. That's just my opinion. That's all I got for this one. That is all we got for the show. I got to get out of here. I got stuff to do. I actually am like way behind on a lot of stuff that I was supposed to do for tomorrow. Hit me up on Twitter, FB_playbook. Shout out to everybody who wrote in to the show this week with the question. Keep up the energy. That actually extended the show about 15 minutes longer than I thought it would be. Shout out to everybody who, like I said before, wrote into the show and thought enough to, send in a question. Don't forget, you can check out the show on YouTube, on Twitch, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Podchaser, Deezer, all these other magical podcasting outlets, including that random one that's in India for some reason. Check that out. Anyway, like and subscribe on YouTube, like and follow on Twitch. Other than that, I'm out of here. Wash your hands, wash your butt, wash your ass, eat your vegetables, drink your water. Go home, Roger.